Fear sells newspapers. So it's just in the best interest of the media to get as many ratings as they can. So therefore, scary stuff sells. They'll put all the fear on there because it grabs your attention. Welcome to the Mystic Mind Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Saunders. Thank you for joining us today. This episode is on the logic of healing. It's not that mystical a subject, really. It's more in the realm of biology and neurology. Our mind and body's natural state is to heal and be at rest. But we are inbuilt with a primordial condition from way back from the grasslands in Africa. So if you can imagine being chased by a lion, it'd be pretty scary. But you would be in a state of fight or flight or freeze if you needed to hide. And we are stuck with that condition. It gets triggered in our modern society. It gets triggered from the news, from our media feeds, from the doom scrolling that happens. And without getting into any conspiratorial angles about any of this, fear sells newspapers. So it's just in the best interest of the media to get as many ratings as they can. So therefore, scary stuff sells. They'll put all the fear on there because it grabs your attention. And the thing is with fear, it releases cortisol and adrenaline, and they are very strong drugs. They're strong stimulants and they're very addictive. So that leaves us in a state of unease. And it's actually called our sympathetic nervous system, which is fight, flight or freeze. So then when we realise that we're in this state, we need to get ourselves out of it. Otherwise, all of our energy is being used to fight, flee or freeze. But it could be used for healing. So we need to put ourselves back into the parasympathetic nervous system. That is where our body is at a natural state of ease, calm. Love, joy, creativity all comes from this regulated nervous system. So the first parts are to identify when we are in the sympathetic nervous system, where we're in a state of unsafety, where we're fearful, anxious, scared, worried, all these negative emotions. So even rushing, running late, all these small little anxieties, we really need to see where they're coming from, where they stem from, because it is all from fear. It's either a fear of not being good enough, a fear of not being accepted, a fear of running out of time or money, and they're not true. They are just things that we are triggered for because that is our conditioned patterns. So it actually feels more normal for most people to be in this state of fear or anxiety because that's what they're used to. So there's nothing wrong with any of it. None of us are to blame and no one's a bad person. It's just the way the world is, and we now need to figure out a way of being in an eased state. We need to be calm and a regulated nervous system, and this is what is going to allow the body to heal itself. So when we're in a deep state of rest, when we sleep deeply, that is where most of our restorative energy comes from. This is what actually heals us. But in our waking days, if we're constantly fearful, worried about not paying the bills in time or upsetting people or whatever it might be, that is going to put us in the state of anxiety and fear, which then all our energy is being used for something that's unnecessary rather than healing ourselves. So once them emotions are identified, then the next step is to listen to the internal self-talk, because this plays a key part. Just reframing how something is said can completely change the energy behind the actual subject itself. So, for instance, you get something wrong. My initial self-talk would have been, "Oh, you idiot." And that is really quite incorrect, because we're allowed to make mistakes. Mistakes are there to teach us lessons. And you're only making mistakes because you haven't had much practice at the subject. So therefore, I try and treat my own self-talk, my internal talk, as I would treat a child, your own child. If this child was learning to swim and they were struggling to swim, would you call them an idiot? I don't think so. And I think in a lot of ways, if we can have that level of compassion with ourselves, it would completely reframe all of this. So when we're learning and it's new stuff, or even if it's something we've done a few times, if it was your child and they'd made mistakes, are you going to scold them for it? Or are you going to give them an opportunity to learn again and teach them carefully and have compassion for them? I'd choose the latter. So I feel that that is the way we need to listen to our own self-talk. So as these emotions pop up, as these thoughts pop up, initially to start with, yeah, they're still going to be, maybe for most of us, somewhat negative. So, oh, you're not good enough, or you'll never fully achieve what other people have, or all this stuff, and that is just degrading us to the point that we won't ever achieve. So the best way to be a good teacher when you're thinking about teaching your children, you wouldn't then put them down to a point of, you'll never achieve this, you might as well give up, roll over. No, you would give them all the enthusiasm possible to help them better themselves and have ambition to do better. So once these are identified and you've figured out what the self-talk patterns are, that can start to reevaluate everything. But a really key factor that I like to use, as soon as we notice we are in a state of unease. So another good phrase that I've heard once before is, there's two states of being. There's a couple of ways of looking at it. So like I've said, it's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. There are these two states. So the parasympathetic is a state of calm, relaxation, healing, joy, creativity. The sympathetic nervous system is the state of fear, fight, flight, freeze, anxieties, worries. So both of them can be looked at the same. It's a feeling of unsafety or a feeling of safety. And the same of ease and dis-ease. So it becomes quite a simple one to hear that when you're in a state of ease, the body's very relaxed, the energy can be used to heal itself, and that is our natural state. But when we're in a state of dis-ease, it can cause disease. There's a lot of stress and tension on the system. The immune system will drop because it's trying to reserve its energy ready to run or fight or freeze. So we want to be in a state of ease. And to trigger ourselves into a state of ease, once we realise these emotions are coming up, these thought patterns are happening, we can then, there's a few things that I like to use that really help. So first one, number one for me, I've used it every day for a long time, it's breathwork. It's very simple idea as well, very simple. So going back to the lion analogy, all right, we're back on the grass plains in Africa. You've been running all day. You've been trying to catch food, but you've nearly become food a few times. So you've been running, hiding, ducking, covering all day. You finally get back to your cave with your tribe. You set a nice big fire in front of the cave. You feel completely safe. Nothing's coming to get you. You take a seat inside the cave. As you sit down, what noise do you make? actually that simple, right? So as you can hear, that sigh, that relief, we can do that within breath work to trigger our body into the parasympathetic nervous system to start relaxing the entire system. So very simply, if you'd like to follow along, I'd just like to do one very conscious breath here. And in the future, I'd like to run through a lot of this with whoever is willing to participate. But breath work is very healing. It's one of the most simple, structured healing modalities there are out there. So if your exhale is longer than your inhale, it naturally starts to put us into a state of ease. It's really simple. So I'd do a simple one. I would count in for 4 through the nose and then out for 6 through the mouth. Very controlled, very conscious on the feeling of the air. So it's like the idea of being conscious of the feeling of the air is really going to help shut off any exterior noise. So any of these thoughts that might have been coming up, these emotions that are trying to grab hold of you and put you back into this other state, they start to dissipate the more your focus becomes centered on the breath. So if you'd like to join me, it's going to be in for 4 through the nose, out for 6 through the mouth. Keeping your present, conscious attention on the feeling of the air passing through your nose and the air passing out through your lips. Do your best to stay on that point. So here we go. In for 4. And that generally is repeated in a breathwork session for around 20 to 30 breaths. And then there'll be some breath holds, and you go back into the pattern. And then after that period, you'll notice that the whole system, the body, starts to feel more relaxed. You'll feel that the vibration in you has actually changed. Because when people talk about vibrations and stuff, it sounds very woo-woo and out there, but you can really feel it in yourself when you sit and you're aware of it. When you're anxious and worried and fearful, there's like a fizz. I feel this fizz. It's like getting really worried, and the higher it gets, the more intense, and it becomes towards almost a panic. And then as this starts to calm down, it's quite the opposite. It feels very much like you're floating. You lay back and float in the pool or in the sea. It's that weightless feeling. And that is the state of healing. That is our natural state. So the more we can stay in this state, the easier it is for our body to regulate and stay in that blissful moment that we need to be in for long as possible to get the healing done. Because when you are in a state of dis-ease and you're in this heightened vibration of anxiety and stress and worry, it dysregulates the body completely. It throws the hormones out, the digestion goes, it raises inflammation. These are all the key factors that start building up to cause diseases. So to mitigate that and be as healthy as we can, we want a regulated nervous system. It wants to be as calm as possible, as much as possible. And there'll be the people that you meet that have a regulated nervous system, that things just don't seem to faze them. Everybody obviously gets angers and fears and worries, but they can just dissipate very quickly and they can go back to this center. And that is what I want for all of us. It's a beautiful way of living. So there's some other ways of getting through to this place. So it's not just breath work. Meditation and awareness is crucial to this for me. Because once you've found this calm place with the breath, meditation is the key of learning focus. So then you can focus on this vibration, or you can focus on this breath to keep your mind in one place. So when these other thoughts start to come up, oh, worry about this, think about that, be fearful of this, it's then your choice. Once you have focus, you can then actually lean your focus from where it's trying to make you look and make you think towards what you actually want to be and what you want to do, which can be very present, very calm, and very clear. And this seems to be part of the human game. We put these resistances here, we put things there to pull our attention, and then we have something else to counterweight it, to pull it back. We need this resistance of pulling against something to build our willpower. So meditation is very crucial for this, to be able to keep you in a calm, still state. Other ways to find this stillness, a lot of people really seem to enjoy it, me too, being in nature as much as possible. That will regulate your nervous system just as well as many of these modalities. And quite obviously, getting yourself out of towns and cities, away from phones, TVs and cars, is going to allow you to calm down straight away, because we are our environment. So if you're by the ocean and it's very calm, or you're in the forest and by a river, whatever it might be, the birds are chirping, long enough in that, you will regulate yourself to that frequency, which is a state of calm, rested safety, which allows the system to heal itself. Probably one of the most natural ways of doing it. And next is really living in harmony, because many of us, with this fear that's in the background of the worry of not achieving enough, or running out, or not being good enough, we try and force life into place. If it doesn't quite fit, we try and work harder, or try and do more, or be more. And that isn't very natural a lot of the time, and that's what can cause a lot of this disease. People can get very uncomfortable just trying to make something fit that doesn't want to fit. So therefore, living in harmony and accepting what is there. Some days you want to go do something that's set up, you have a plan with somebody, the plan falls through. You don't let it ruin your day. It's very much just part of what needs to be done. You go to a certain shop to pick something up, they don't have what you want. You shouldn't fall down and crumble. This is having to be flexible with the reality that we have. The more rigid we become, the more brittle we are. Some of the strongest items naturally on the planet are things like bamboo, because they're flexible. They're strong and flexible, so it allows us to not crumble under pressure. So it's a very important one to keep in this mind state clear, so it can flex, it can move around and move with the tides of life, and it all still fits in place. Having good rest is very important. So sleeping deeply, sleeping well, and giving yourself time off. Having plenty of time for rest. Rest is not laziness. It's actually biological intelligence. It's the body knowing when it needs to calm and regulate, so it doesn't become overstimulated, overstressed, overwhelmed, and put back into this state of unease and unsafety, to keep us in the regulation as much as possible. It's not about blaming yourself, it's about reclaiming power. You're not broken, you don't need to be fixed. You need to feel safe. You need space, and you need permission to do so. This you will give to yourself. Healing is about relationship. It's about the relationship we have with ourselves. So to build on this, ask yourself a few questions. Where am I forcing things in life? Where could I soften? And what would it feel like to be safe right now? Think about those. That could really help. So life naturally flows. That is the way it is. It wants to flow through us. It wants to flow with healing, creativity, love, joy, bliss. They're all the natural emotions of the universe. When we stress and we worry, we try and force things, we tighten. There's a constriction in us. If you can imagine this flow of reality that tries to come through us, and we're like the hose pipe that the flow comes through. As we worry and we stress and we try and control things, we constrict the flow of the pipe. We're squeezing. Healing's not about trying to squeeze more water through the pipe. It's about releasing and allowing it to flow naturally. Thank you for joining me on this. I hope you've taken away some things that are going to help you. And I'll be leading on with a lot more breathwork and healing modalities in the future. So, have a blessed day.